Hey, what is up, mortals? Welcome Season 2 Part 7. What if Deku was trained by Stain? Just wanted to greet you guys by just saying sit back and relax, you're in for a treat, and so we begin. The night was still young, yet Stain cannot waver the dread crawling beneath his skin. From the uneventful encounters he had with them, he knew well that if his suspicions ended up correct, a lot might get hurt. However, from the perspective of being a villain himself before reverting into vigilancy, the group seemed to lack quality amongst its rank, and so it dawned upon him. Stain, sir, there are suspicious movements observed from the farther parts of the forest. The warp gate and the swarming villains coming out of it. Stain never deplored if the villains attacked UA High, for there were other things on his plate. It just so happened that the class they preferred to infiltrate and induce turmoil this time has inherent true heroes and a true hero amongst them, in which he placed upon himself to see to it that these chosen children will face the future for them to be of a great example as heroes in this rotten society. Meanwhile, as Pixie Bob announced the test of courage, the majority of the students vibrated in excitement, some due to the chance to bear witness to seeing their classmates frightened, while some look forward to seeing which could scare their fellow young heroes. All that excitement downed upon the selected Class 1A and Class 1B students who failed the test, and therefore required to take remedial classes instead of participating in tonight's event. When Pixie Bob finished laying out the rules, the pairings started to draw. Izuku ended up being alone. Not that he minded, of course. He just thought it could be an opportunity to know more about his classmates. It was a little too tranquil, Izuku thought as his mind wanders off a little to the thought during the attack on USJ. However, he could now forget those images of the night's tranquility as two villains appeared in front of them. One which successfully knocked out Pixie Bob when it advanced. While Pussycat shifted their stance into offense, it crossed Izuku's mind that under these attacks, Koda is left alone. And amidst Mandalay's use of her telepathy, to which he assumed were directed towards their teachers. Next, he heard her voice warning about evacuation as their safety is more of the priority right now. They assigned some of the students to scatter and aid others. Ada was about to leave with Izuku, but he said he would catch up later as Koda could probably off somewhere and in danger. It was a good thing he knew where The Kid had hidden himself already. That fact alone could ease the whole retrieval. However, when he arrived, Koda is being towered by the villain and immobilized due to fear. As the villain was gearing up for an attack, Izuku had well anticipated this, so he powered one for all, lunged towards Koda, and clutched him off the way with him. Although, as he took in the situation, his phone got ruined in the process, making communications impossible, but the priority remained the same: Koda's safety. Koda-kun, stay behind my back, and upon the signal, take a straight run to save yourself, and I would follow after. Okay, I'll always be there to save you. Oh, that's some heroic speech you got there, green boy. Would that be your last words before I finish you off? The villain taunted, a condescending smirk running, contorting his features. Izuku had left his blades at his quarters as they never expected this. It could have done something to distract the villain. He could only do so much with the little percentage of control he has over One for All. This is not the time for this. To protect Koda is my #1 priority, he thought, steeling himself along the way as he powered up to 100%. Neglectful of the risks as they continued the tango of their violence. While he deemed it as a success to inflict injuries to the villain, it was still looking like a near-losing battle with twice the amount of the injuries he sustained. Wait, I recognize you. You're one of the brats in the list. The villain's voice trailed off while he charges, his fists finding its way to meet Deku's stomach, which almost knocked the young hero. Their Koda's warning erupted as he informed Midoriya that the man in front was muscular, that brought upon the heroic death of his parents during his apprehension by the couple pro-heroes. Is that the League's goal tonight? To bring my death? Muscular's laughter boomed while he gains his stance once more. That, and maybe before your death, you can tell me where one can find this Bakugo. The kid is our greater priority than your death. Kakin, what offense did he commit against the League? For a moment he felt panic at the sound of his childhood friend's name on the mouth of a League of Villains member. But even before Midoriya finally delivers the conclusion as to what brought the targeting upon, blads of various kinds seemingly fell out of nowhere, caging the villain. Izuku, the intruder called out. As much as there was the familiarity of the methodology, their identity remained foreign to him. Save the kid and aid upon your classmates as you can. At first, he found himself perplexed, for he expected the intruder to be the villain's backup, yet, as Muscular struggled to gain mobility, it hit him. This one, whose fashion resembled his mentor, was probably the new student he took in after the Hasu incident, Spinner. Meanwhile, the one behind the opponent's immobility was his mentor himself, probably cautious of communicating with him in an open space, just as the whole situation finally sunk at Midoriya. A knowing nod of both understanding and gratefulness was sent towards the older apprentice of their mentor. I will do just so, thank you. Immediately, he activates his quirk, followed by taking the kid into his arms and took leaps to get to Aizawa as soon as possible. He repeats the words Muscular told him about Bakugo being of greater priority than he is on their list, but he cannot think as to why. While they were on their way, Kota reflects as to what Mandalay had told him back then. One day, Kota, when you have that experience of being saved, you'll understand why your parents chose what they did. Why? The child surprisingly spoke out of the blue, gaining him the young hero's attention, while they passed through almost half of the forest undetected by other villains. Are you asking me why I did what I did back there, Kota-kun? Yes, I wanted to understand why did you have to do what you did and why did my parents did the same thing. Frustration laced his voice. He was just a child to understand everything, yet he needed to know for he'll remember this day. He would remember this day when he could be hopefully old enough to look from more than a child's perspective. Because, despite the soreness of his body and the urgency of the situation, Midoriya decided to stop a little to address the child's inquiry. Kota-kun, that's what heroes do. Some would selflessly break their own body or give up what they held most for others. A selfless act is the essence of a hero. After that, they proceeded into their way with Midoriya silent about the sobs he hears as a respect to the child's privacy. Finally, as Aizawa came into view, he knew from the look of his problem child that there was a villain encounter that preceded their arrival. And so, relief washes over him with the sight of a less injured Midoriya Izuku, especially with how hard it was for his body to control his quirk. Aizawa-sensei. His tone implied that his student probably winded up with valuable information and that someone was in danger while they were conversing at the moment. Kaken is their target. They told me his capture is of greater importance than my death. What should we do? The teacher took Kota from his student's arms. He straightened up his back along with the usual hard look reflected in his eyes, a telltale sign of an incoming order from a hero to the aspiring ones. Midoriya, go find Mandalay. Make sure she tells everyone that I, Shouta Aizawa, will allow the students to utilize their quirks in the battle for self-defense. I shall take responsibility afterward. Yes, sir. By the time Midoriya finally reached Mandalay, the villains that attacked them a while ago were down. There was a worried look in her eyes about Kota, but he assured the child's safety as he just brought him to Aizawa's. Mandalay, Aizawa-sensei gave me an order for you to tell everyone. Please tell everybody this. Midoriya, go find Mandalay. Make sure she tells everyone that I, Shouta Aizawa, will allow the students to utilize their quirks in the battle for self-defense. I shall take responsibility afterward. And let them also know that the villain's target tonight is Kaken. He gave a curt nod and proceeded to leave, for he should not waste time. Every minute wasted could mean success for the villains. However, Mandalay was left to wonder as to who was this Kaken. Nevertheless, she still did as told. Listen up, everyone. Aizawa gave an order to utilize your quirks in the battle for self-defense, and the kid they call Kaken is the target of the villains. I repeat, Aizawa gave an order to utilize your quirks in the battle for self-defense, and the kid they call Kaken is the target of the villains. She takes a breath momentarily and gives her warning to the students. This Kaken is to avoid contact with villains, especially acting independently. While everyone who heard her was taken aback with surprise and worry shrouding their nerves from their classmates, one felt the opposite. He was taking his run into the forest towards the villain on their opposite end. Kaken, stop talking in my head. Irritation was plastered upon his face because, of every people to mess up, Bakugo would not be satisfied with the last message from Mandalay. It was unsatisfying enough for him that he was working with Todoroki, whom he calls half and half bastard, along with the annoying villain. Their exchange of blows against the villain continues until it momentarily halted as Todoroki froze the villain's blade. Didn't you hear? She just said you were being targeted by the villains. Todoroki feels exasperated, for he knew the attitude of his classmate because, like everyone else, Bakugo tended to be severely stubborn. Especially this time, it was becoming impossible to reason out to him sometimes. That damn Deku did something. I just know it. Saying fight, then don't fight. Don't tell me what to do. If he was irritated just a while ago, then right now, Bakugo only felt anger. He tried landing an explosion only to have another of the villain's teeth-like blade on his space and ice from Todoroki to aid with after attack. Although the option of retreating was on the table considering the opponent's expert use of the terrain to his advantage, the gas covering just drove them into a corner. Usage of his fire, as well as Bakugo's explosion, would risk burning the forest and taking down everyone with it, which gets them nearer to the edge. Meanwhile, on the other side, just near to their current location, Midoriya and Mizo is dealing with Fumicage's struggle against Dark Shadow, who has grown in size and rampaging. They were both told to go away as they will get killed by Dark Shadow. However, Midoriya refused to agree. Midoriya, you got to choose right now. You can still move a little despite the injuries. Choose between Bakugo or Fumicage. Even in this situation, he refused to agree once more. I can't do that. There must be a way to save both. That's the only option I will take. But they weren't lucky enough, as the villain who cut Mizo's arm just a while ago returned with his teeth-like blade coming their way. The only option they could take was lure Dark Shadow towards the villain, which they took despite the risks in the gamble that they might see Bakugo along the way, in which hope shines upon the recognizable features of both Katsuki and Shadow. Anyone make a light. Before anyone could comprehend what the order was about, Dark Shadow claws upon the villain and crushes its blade like teeth added by a follow-up strike. The opponent is finally down. That was the time both Katsuki and Shadow realized what transpired. Both of them generated a heavily controlled fire and explosion respectively to light it up against Dark Shadow, which effectively brought back Dark Shadow into its original size, seizing up the rampage. For a moment, Fumikage wallows for what Dark Shadow has done, which was rooted in his weakness to control his quirk. He was quickly told by both Midoriya and Mizo not to feel guilty about it, that things like such indeed happen, and understandable as they were just in training too. Let's surround Bakugo on our way to Aizawa-sensei. That way, all sides are guarded. Bakugo hated the whole setup, for he was more than capable of protecting himself. Thus he deemed this whole escorting unnecessary, for they won't help anyway. Not so far from them were both Ochako and Tsuyu going against one of the villains whose affection for drawing blood from others was her greatest desire. She looked like she was of the same age as they are, yet the dangerous glint of her eyes implied no hesitation to kill. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. Hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes deep into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series, guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We The Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. I'd like to let you all know on behalf of We The Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. If you're perhaps interested in what we do here at WTC, then I would like to extend out an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being we only accept members 16 and older to join our crew. You can find us on our Discord, which you can locate in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be. Whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits, all you gotta do is hit up the recruitment server and sign up for whichever category of work fulfills your interests. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.